Hello, everybody. Oh, wait. Hello, everybody. We're going to get started in a few more minutes. I'm just waiting on the speakers to arrive. There was a speaker who was supposed to speak, but I haven't heard anything. But well, actually, there were two speakers who were supposed to speak, but I haven't heard anything back, even after sending multiple follow-up emails. So I sent them the instructions. I sent them the Zoom link, and hopefully they'll just pop in whenever. But if not, we'll probably only have one speaker today, and the other speakers, hopefully they'll respond soon, and then we can try to get them to uh, fit in on the 4th if we can. But yeah, so we'll just give them give Dr. Hollingsworth a few more minutes to join, and then we'll get started. All right. I still have not received anything from the speaker yet. I was just emailing him like literally 5 minutes before we're supposed to get started. So hopefully he'll be able to join soon. I sent him 2 follow-up emails. Hopefully he's like getting ready or something. I don't know. But in the meantime, I'm just he's right here. Dr. Hollingsworth, why didn't you say anything?
I was not sure how you guys want to start, but yeah, we can. I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get started then. Wait. Why is this not this? 1 second. Okay. All right. So everyone, this is Dr. Hollingsworth. Hold on. Sorry about that. I thought we was waiting on you. But everyone is muted. Okay, we're going to first start off with a prayer from Nicole from Campus Ministry, and then we'll talk about Dr. Hollingsworth and his background, and then we'll let him get started. So Nicole, will you lead us off?
Thanks so much, Sabraya. This is a prayer from a collection of prayers for Black History Month. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Spirit of abundance, God of grace, Mother of hope, we pause now to remember those stories that are all around us, but so often passed over. Those stories that, when told, are shared because of what someone is, not who they are. This month in our nation's character is Black History Month. Help us to realize that Black history is all our histories. May the day come when these stories are so wildly taught that no month need be separately divided. We know this day will not come until we as a people make different choices. We pray now for those new choices. May we come to see a day where the prison system becomes redemptive, not punitive. A day where the legal system learns to focus more squarely on the facts and not the colors of our skin. A day where our schools are as well funded as the needs demand. May our role models be allowed to excel when they thrive and not to be taken down for their rich heritage. We know this will require a shift in power, and this can be scary for some. Give those full of fear, hope. May we come to know grace so that our hearts will not be hardened to the pain around us. There are so many beautiful stories needing to be told, and we need to get the chance to hear them. Widen our vision so that the history that is shared this month, and particularly in the month of February and every month, come to be known as our history too. We are most human when we see the humanity in others. Amen. In the name of the Father,
Amen.
Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Sorry, couldn't figure this out, but that was beautiful. Thank you, Nicole. All right, everyone, we're about to get started. So let me share. Hold on. Okay. Alrighty, can everyone see that? Wait. Sorry, I am like not tech savvy at all, so I'm like really having trouble right now. Let me see. Are y'all able to see my screen?
Yeah, we see the Celt Talk 2021 Black Student Union and Campus Community.
Oh no. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me try this again. I'm trying to share the photo. All right, let me see. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay if you can't share it.
I think I got it. Can everyone see?
Yeah, we see it now.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, this is Dr. Javoris Hollingsworth. His research interests include the synthesis and characterization of multifunctional hybrid particles, as well as the study of complex fluids. In particular, his group aims to develop low-cost nanotechnology that may find use in biomedical and environmental applications. Techniques such as dynamic light scattering, small-angle X-ray scattering, X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy, and transmission electron microscopy, almost got it, play a major role in the characterization of these materials. He has a degree, a doctor of philosophy in chemistry from Louisiana State University and A&M College, a master of science in chemistry from Louisiana State University and A&M College, a bachelor of science in chemistry from Georgia Southern University, and that's it. And his publications include additive-free synthesis of monodispersed gold nanoparticles with cyclodextrins in the Journal of Undergraduate Chemistry Research. Another publication includes preparation of, excuse me if I butcher this, metalloporphyrin bound superparamagnetic silica particles via click reaction. Okay. In the Journal of ACS Applied Materials and Interfaces. Another publication includes From Repulsive to Attractive Glass, a rheological investigation in the Journal of Chemical Physics. And lastly, coupling of gelation and glass transition in a biphasic colloidal mixture from gel to defective gel to glass in the Journal of Soft Matter. Okay. And he's also a chemistry teacher and my old chemistry teacher here at UST. So everyone give it up for Dr. Hollingsworth. And Dr. Hollingsworth, if you need to share your screen, we'll get it shared. If not, I'm just gonna exit out of the picture.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bell. Yeah, you can just exit out of the picture. So I wanted this to be more so like a conversation in a sense. So let me pull this up. I can see you guys. Yeah, so in acknowledging, this month of Black History, I kind of want to focus more so like on what got me to this point, as far as the many giants in which I stand on their shoulders to be where I'm at now, and even the many privilege I get to enjoy because of what many people from the past have endured to fight for equality to bring us to this point. So I'm gonna kind of take you through a timeline to my journey and some of the experiences that I've had, particularly as an African American male in America, as well as abroad. So from that, I hope you could become more inspired and just have a whole new perspective. So my journey actually starts in Jeffersonville, Georgia. That's my hometown. Very small place, very small place. In fact, want to take a guess at how many people we have there?
300?
Wow, you went way low.
1,000?
Yeah, so we have about 2,000 people in the entire city. We only have one stoplight, no, like as far as like traffic light, which basically is a four-way stop. So very rural area. Most people live below the poverty line. So, you can kind of paint a picture of the environment and as far as my upbringing. But one thing I always knew though is that I wanted better for myself. I wanted better for my family and everyone who followed after me. So I just knew I had to figure out a way to get out, but I didn't know exactly how. I was very fortunate to have people who believed in me before I even believed in myself. I remember the first individual I want to mention is Mr. Matt Carswell, who was my high school science teacher. And this kind of goes back to what I mean by some of the giants who came before me, who actually, I stand on their shoulders to this day, and I'm forever thankful. But he approached me one day. He's like, Hollingsworth, you really should consider doing this science program. They do research over the summer. I had zero interest in the sciences, no experience in research. So this was something that wasn't even on my radar. So I instantly told him no. He didn't give up. He came back to me, I think like a few days later, and he said, I really think you should consider giving this a chance. And I told him no again. And then he mentioned, he's like, well, they will pay you for it. And then that's when I kind of I kind of paused and like, okay, so when does the program start? So it kind of got it made me interested because of the whole financial factor, just due to the fact that from a financial standpoint, we weren't like super well off. So, but the funny thing is, by the time that I gained that experience in that summer research program, I realized that was something I should honestly pay them for giving me that experience, because from it, I realized I wanted to go to college, because that was my first time on a college campus. And the moment that was even more remarkable for me was that was the first time I saw a Black professor at Georgia College and State University. It was an African-American woman by the name of Dr. Rosalie Richards. And I was inspired from that moment, because it's kind of hard to emulate something you've never seen before. If you don't have that model, it's hard to know, how to go about becoming what you would want to be if you've never seen it. So that was a huge moment for me, because that's when I was able to see what I could become. And that was from that moment I went back to the campus, my high school, super encouraged to press forward. And I knew at that moment, like, okay, I want to go to college, but the issue was my family didn't save up college funds. This wasn't something that was done. Like most people from my family, like most people in my community, the idea was you graduate from high school and maybe you go out, pick up a trade, and that's, you start working. And that's pretty much the end of that story. But from my experience at Georgia College and State University, I knew I wanted to go to college. So trying to figure out how to make that happen, I didn't know how to make it work. I was very fortunate to have my high school guidance counselor approach me, and she's like, hey, there's this scholarship opportunity. We got this in the mail, check it out, see what you think. And it was the timing of that, it was just kind of odd, but the way everything all aligned. But I remember seeing it and then looking at it, I was like, man, they want me to write like 100 essays for this scholarship. I'm not exaggerating. It was like a ton of essays they want me to write for this. So I didn't know where to start, but I was very fortunate to have my high school English teacher, Miss Willeen Burney. She took time, like she worked throughout the day, but after school, she would sit down with me and I would put my thoughts out and she would help me mold and shape my thoughts to where it was clear and concise and written when I wrote it on paper. And, that was something, and she was also an African-American woman, these different people who were sewing and basically believing in me, that was a huge piece. So I wrote up all these essays, submitted my application. I remember getting the first letter back, and they're saying, "Oh, congratulations, you've made it past the first round. Good job." All right, I'm happy, but it still doesn't seem like a reality at the moment that I could potentially get it. So then I got a second message or letter. All right, congratulations, you've made it to the next round. Wow, now it's starting to get real, right? So then I remember being at my grandmother's house, and I had that last letter, and I came in and opened it, and it said, "Dear Javaris Hollingsworth, congratulations on receiving the Bill Gates Scholarship." So I was very fortunate and blessed to receive a scholarship from Bill Gates, and it would pay for all of my college, as far as undergraduate all the way up to graduate school. So this moment was huge, and that scholarship was also in collaboration with the United Negro College Fund. So these were all, again, everyone's sewing in or pouring in to my development to push me forward. So after that experience, receiving the Bill Gates Scholarship, now I had this opportunity, this golden ticket to go to any school in the nation, completely free of charge. But the issue was me being a first generation college student. Like most families, it's very hard to see your baby. At least they will always see you as your baby. It's harder for them to see the baby get up and go miles and miles away. And I was in a similar boat. So we came to the decision or the conclusion that, all right, I'll go to college, but I'll go to one that's not too far from home. So I chose to go to Georgia Southern University, and that was actually a great decision for me as well, because from that I was able to go to and actually see a few more African American people in the role of a professor, and I gained some great mentors. I remember Dr. Johnson. He took me under his wing and provided awesome mentorship. And he was actually one of the individuals who encouraged me to consider graduate school. And from there, I then started applying to different graduate programs. And I chose to go to Louisiana State University, LSU. So from LSU, while I was at LSU, I had some very interesting experiences there, just due to the fact that in my hometown, I grew up around mostly, African American people, and that was pretty much the main thing I identified with. But when I got to LSU, being the minority, that's when it really, really, really set in for me, because, it's predominantly, white institution, or PWI, and it was very hard to make that transition, because in a lot of ways, and I don't know if many of you have ever felt this way, but just that feeling of as though you don't belong, like that feeling of whether you're out of place, or you're an outcast, or how people are perceiving you. So that was probably the toughest part of my transition, just having to kind of cope and learn how to navigate certain situations. But yeah, that was my time at LSU, where there were some moments where I experienced situations where people wouldn't necessarily try to do things in an overt manner, but there was these moments where there's just these microaggressions where people could say things, not purposely trying to mean any harm, but it would happen. But yeah, from that experience, I grew a lot. I learned from those experiences, and of course, I earned my master's and my PhD while I was there. So not only did I advance from a academic standpoint, but just from a personal growth, I gained a lot from that as well. But I was very hungry for success. I wanted to, again, like I said before, my experiences from being in small town Jeffersonville, I was eager to, get to a point where I could be a major help to my family as well as others around me. So I chose to take on a postdoctoral position, which is basically me doing research after earning my PhD. And I was very fortunate to receive a grant from the National Science Foundation, and I went to conduct research in Beijing, China. Now my question to you, what do you think the population is in Beijing, China?
Millions?
Okay, Yeah. Anyone want to give me
At least 2 million. Like it has to be a little bigger than Houston.
okay. Olivia said at least 2 million. Dominique, Jason, Nicole, any Emily?
5 million?
All right. I think that was that Nicole?
Yeah.
Nicole is the closest. I'll give you one more guess. I think Dominique or Emily, Jason.
I would say it's over like 10 million.
Okay, Jason just took the cake. He's the closest now. The answer is over 21.5 million. Over 21.5 million. Start just thinking back from at the beginning of my story, where I started out in small town Jeffersonville, population of 2,000 or so people, mostly, African American. I was in my comfort zone, right? Now, then I talked about my transition to undergraduate school, then graduate school, being at the PWI. Then now I'm in Beijing, China, amongst over 21 million people. So this was interesting because you could actually feel the population, like, riding on the subway or all these different places. But being an African American man in those positions too, or those, these different environments, that was very interesting. It was a very different experience from what I had before. I remember, sometimes children staring, not out of, being mean or anything, just out of curiosity, just pure curiosity. Some people would, may occasionally take pictures depending on where you were. But one thing I do remember I had to kind of overcome during that experience. So you guys can't tell how tall I am because, of course, I'm sitting down. You can only see me probably, half of my torso. But I'm over 6 feet tall. I'm like maybe 6'1", 6'2". What do you think people thought when they saw me walking around Beijing? And be as honest as you can.
That you're like some type of athlete or like somebody just like important from America, just doing.
Yeah. So a lot of times I would get Kobe, or these very awkward moments where, I was instantly an athlete or a professional athlete and whatnot, and I wasn't. I was there as a scientist. I was there conducting research with some of the brightest minds, in that region. And, and that goes back to sometimes, and I think this is an overall society thing. A lot of times people tend to put individuals in boxes, no matter, who you are, what color, but it's particularly for, Black people, there's certain stereotypes or boxes that people tend to place you in. And of course, I was, often placed in that box of, oh yeah, an NBA player, basketball guy. But this was great though, because it was an opportunity to educate others. A lot of times when they would approach and make these different comments, I didn't take offense to it. I just would say, oh no, I'm actually here doing research at the Institute of Chemistry, Chinese Academy of Science. And, from there, first of all, you would get that. I would instantly get that look like, the wow face, because that's not something that people would imagine, because especially with the media, a lot of times, especially people who don't really come into contact with certain people from other cultures, the only thing they really have to go by is what they see, on movies and, television and things like that. And a lot of times we're not always portrayed in the best light. So this was great to be amongst people who probably had, these preconceived notions, but to show them who I was as a person, not just my color of my skin. So that was very, that was a very powerful moment for me. So after that experience of living in Beijing, China, and I was there with my family, they were pretty much ready to get back to the US, right? Because, in a lot of ways that the whole Western way of life is very different. So my first move from a professional standpoint was starting my career at Florida A&M University, which is an HBCU, or historically Black college and university. So at Florida A&M University, I felt like I was back home, right? Most of my students looked like me, right? So that was one of those things where I felt, there's a strong connection there. I could make different references, and most of the, they would get everything that would kind of throw out there. But I thought from that experience of being at a Black university, oh, all the racism and things like that, I've escaped it, right? I'm in this safe zone, but that wasn't necessarily true. Again, and it's not always a white versus Black, or Black versus white, or that type of thing. Sometimes even within the same group, there's can be certain outlooks that one may have without even realizing it. But I do remember one Saturday, that was my first year teaching as a professor, a visiting assistant professor at Florida A&M in the chemistry department. And on weekends, I would host review sessions for the students who needed extra help in preparation for exams. And then I think I was probably in my late 20s, probably late 20s when I was in that role. And of course, when you think of a professor, a chemistry professor, what do you visualize? What do you picture? And I kind of want to hear your perspectives on this. What do you picture when you think of a professor?
Typically a white male,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
probably older with glasses.
Okay. Any others?
Same for me.
You said same for you. What about Emily and Dominique? What do you guys think? Like, what do you picture when you think professor, especially chemistry or science professor?
Someone in the lab coat almost all the time, really.
Jason says someone in the lab coat. Yeah. What about Nicole? Do you have like what you kind of imagine or picture when you think professor?
I imagine like a very eccentric, like oddly dressed type.
Yeah. Everything that you guys have just said is spot on. And in a lot of ways, I'm the complete opposite of everything you guys just mentioned. You mentioned an older white gentleman, wearing glasses and lab coats and, the whole nine. I go completely against the grain on that. So you can kind of imagine when someone would approach me when I'm on campus or certain places, especially on a weekend when everyone else is away. It's alarming, for some people. But I remember that one Saturday, I was getting ready to open the door in preparation of for a review session, and a security guard came and stopped me. And the first question was, what are you doing here? And of course, my response was, I teach here. I'm a professor. So you can already kind of put things into context how that probably was perceived. Like, okay, this young Black guy saying that he's a professor. So of course there was more. So it was, okay, I'm gonna need to see an ID. So of course I had to pull out an ID. And growing up, I kind of learned how to handle certain situations where, not to escalate things and not be aggressive when confronted with certain issues, because of the fact that, well, if you do that, what do you think the likely outcome usually is? Well, we've seen this even more recently in the news. You know, there's situations where people could be fatally shot or choked or anything. But I just complied, gave my ID and whatnot. Although on the inside, it's kind of, in some ways it can be humiliating to kind of have to prove yourself all the time, where you just want to be able to freely do what you do. But that was one of those moments where, it was kind of a reminder of how society is sometimes. But again, that was one of my experiences there at Florida A&M. So after being at Florida A&M, I went on to UST, University of St. Thomas. All right. University of St. Thomas, believe it or not, was a very good breath of fresh air in a lot of ways. And I don't know if it's because of, it being a Catholic university, but I think for the most part, a lot of people just have a very open mind, and I felt comfortable at UST as well. But of course, no place is perfect, right? I did have some encounters or situations too at UST, and nothing that would break me, but still, it was something that really stood out. That the one instance I remember was when I was my first year of teaching at USC. I was so excited to be there. My first time in a tenure track position, new city, Houston being amazing, and I was super prepared. And I went to class, and I would do pretty much the whole nine. I would have interactive activities where people can, making learning fun. And I would, make little songs to help people memorize stuff. And I really took the job serious. So there was one day a student approached me after class and was like, "Man, you're the first Black professor I've ever had, and I, I, this is really great." It's like, and then the student followed up, was like, the way you teach it's really easy for me to take in information. So I'm sitting here feeling good about myself, like, oh man, this is, I'm getting through to the students. But then the student ended with, yeah, the university really did a good job of this diversity hire. And, I was basically floored from that, because well, you guys have all heard of my background story of my journey getting up to that point, right? It wasn't a cakewalk. It wasn't anything that was given to me. It was, I earned. I had to work hard. But in that very moment, I felt tiny. I felt like, I don't know, it was a very bad feeling. But instead of me, feeling broken or kind of just giving up from that point, that was another moment to educate. And I told the student, like, no, I'm here on my own merit. Like I earned this position, and that that's the end of it. So, and then of course the student tried to backtrack. Oh no, that's not what I meant. But that again, that's one of those things that some people have in their minds, and they kind of have this belief that only certain people should be in certain roles. And if you who, let's say, and this is not just from a Black or white perspective, but this can also be applied from a woman versus a man perspective as well, because a lot of times, similar to the racial issues, there's also the gender factor where, oh yeah, well, only a woman should only have certain roles, or a man should have only certain roles. But in a lot of ways, a lot of these gender roles that we try to put in place, I've seen women. In fact, most of the people who've encouraged me to even get to this point have been women. So, but anyway, my whole point is, no matter what comes your way, no matter what people say, no matter, how someone may approach you, one, you belong. Each of you are where you are now for a reason. You have a purpose here. And, no matter the circumstance, continue to live out your purpose. People before you, I can think about all these great civil rights activists and great leaders, as well as fantastic scientists who come long before me. I can think of, like, for instance, Dr. Percy Julian and all these others who have just made tremendous contributions to society. And I feel like, each of you can make the same, if not better, contributions as well. So, yeah, we celebrate this month, but I think we can continue to make it. And I absolutely love Nicole's prayer, because it would be great to where we can get to the point where we don't have to have this month to celebrate, but we can basically celebrate everyone and everyone's contributions across the year, where there isn't a designated period, right? But yeah, that's my those are my words of encouragement to you. And if you have any questions right now, I'm open to discuss.
Thank you, Dr. Hollingsworth. I have a question. So whenever you stayed in China, how did things work out with the language barrier and everything? Were you able to learn the language? Were people able to speak English to you, or how did that work out?
In the region, the region I was in, a good bit of people, most of them actually spoke English. Now, the issue was when I would go to the countryside. That's when, everyone primarily spoke Mandarin, and depending on what region I went to, each person would have their own dialect in a way. But I was there almost 2 years, and that was actually enough time for me to soak up. Like, I was so immersed in the language that I actually picked up way more than I thought. Of course, now being in the US, I don't use it. So it's one of those things where you don't use it, you lose it. And so I've forgotten most of the stuff I learned. But while I was there, the people were very nice, at least, within the community that I was working within. And, I had people who would help me out. Sometimes I occasionally would think I recognized something on a menu, and it would be something completely different. Like, once I thought I ordered chicken or something, but it turned out to be frog. There was one dish that I remember eating. I found out later it was goat's blood. But from this though, I absolutely loved it though, because all those things were things I probably wouldn't normally even consider doing, but just opening up my mind to new experiences and other cultures. And honestly, that's what I feel like brings us back to the center, learning about each other, right? When we learn about each other, we don't allow these stereotypes to play our minds and place people in boxes. But yeah, that was my experience there. So the language issue wasn't too bad. And yeah, especially in the main part of Beijing.
Thank you.
No problem.
What's a country that you love to do research in?
Well, you know what? That experience in China was wild for me. The reason I say that, but point being, I actually enjoy doing research here in the US more, but the moment where was kind of mind blowing for me was when we were in China. I remember, so our typical day here, right? We wake up in the morning, right? We go get breakfast, then we go, work, and then after work we go to lunch. After lunch, go back to work, and after that you clock out and go home, right? In China, it was, you go to breakfast, you come to the labs, you do research, you go to lunch, you come back to the lab, you do more research, you go to dinner, and then you come back to the lab. And that last part was where I was like, wait, y'all are going back to the lab? And some of the students, I remember some of the graduate students at the Institute of Chemistry, Chinese Academy of Science, those guys would actually have cots in the lab, right? So if they had reactions or things like that were running, they would physically be there to monitor the reaction or turn it off and stuff like that. That was something I never did in the US, right? But yeah, that was probably the most interesting perspective I had as far as like the research. But if I had to choose, where I enjoy it the most, definitely in the US. Especially when I was at one point I was in Baltimore, Maryland, but I would commute to Gaithersburg, and I would do research at the National Institute of Standards and Technology at NIST. That was a really cool experience too, because I had a chance to meet a lot of fantastic people and do some great research there too. Yep. Any other questions?
I have a quick question. You mentioned about how learning about different people, we can limit all the things that has happened. Since you've been back and you've been teaching here at UST, have you been able to implement that in your classes, or are you still something that's you're still working on?
As far as
As far as letting people know who you are as an African American man in your job field.
Yeah. So each semester, in the past, I used to I would just walk in, go over the syllabus, and pretty much dive into the teaching parts. But now, usually I make a point that first day to kind of talk about where I come from, not going through the long background I gave you guys today, but just letting them know hey, I'm here and I'm not just placed here, not some token. I actually bring value in what I do. So one of the big pieces too with that was me realizing what I bring. I think one of the big issues with this, a lot of times when society's doing that, you start to feel for instance, imposter syndrome. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that feeling. Have any of you guys ever had that feeling, like imposter syndrome?
Yes, a lot.
Yes, a lot throughout college.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I'm sure you have those moments where you're like, man, I don't think am I actually smart enough? Am I where you start to think man, was I just lucky to get to this point? But no, I and that part takes, soul searching. But once I got to that point where I realized no, man, I'm legit. I'm the real deal. And a lot of times, we always talk about, be humble and whatnot, which I do think is important to be, but also you should have some level of self-confidence, because sometimes you're going to get hit with certain things where if your confidence level isn't quite there, certain words or certain actions will completely deplete you. And I've been there. I've had those moments where man, do I know what I'm talking about? Was that right? Where you start to second guess yourself, right? But yeah, I taking ownership in that. So, on my first day of class, letting them know my background and that, and credentials and experiences. And then I think, people then kind of look okay, this guy, he's real though. He's not just filling a spot. And I think that helps. But on another note, I think it would be great to have a deeper conversation with students as far as, understanding their thinking because in a lot of ways, and this isn't, again, not just a white versus black or any other type thing, but I feel like society as a whole, there's a lot of things we need to start unlearning, right? We become programmed, especially based on our experiences, and in a lot of ways that's a great defense mechanism because it is, it kind of helps in many ways, but at the same time, it can accidentally build up barriers. But yeah, that I think it would be great to have a deeper conversation with students in general, and even events like this, I think would be great. Anything that would allow us to learn each other more, and because the less we know about each other, that just leaves more room for assumptions, right? And the more we're assuming, that just makes it just adds on to the wall, right? Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, those were my approaches. Like just basically introducing myself and giving background. But it would be great to have moments like this with the general student body, I think. Yeah, my question to you guys, have you had any of those type of experiences, not just at USC, but in general?
Yeah, I would say especially in my degree, and then also like in the workplace as well.
Mm.
When I was working at the hospital and then doing different stuff, it was always someone who like tried to, I guess, just undermine my uh, value, like you said, in my capabilities and roles just because I was Black. And it was obviously like they pretty much made it obvious where it was coming from, that it was from a place of racism, and that they had a presumption of me based off of the color of my skin.
So how did you address that? Were you able to address it, or you just kind of brushed it under the rug, or what? How?
I think now I do better at addressing it. Before it was kind of a thing where I would let it get to me, and where I would let it affect my confidence and like the interpretation I had of myself. But now it's one of those things where I know where I've been, I know how hard I've worked, I know what I do. So other people's idea of me is really just a reflection of their own insecurities. And I've learned to realize it's all projection and it's all like things that they have with themselves. And I've learned to just go about it in a respectful way and just letting people know like that's not okay. I'm here for a reason. I'm where I am because of what I do, and I would like to be treated and respected just like everybody else. So yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Anybody else?
One time I had an experience at work where a customer was being really rude to me in the drive-through, and then he came inside and was like really nice to my coworker who was white.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. Those moments. It's heartbreaking, right? It's really heartbreaking because every person, no matter your background, everyone just wants to be accepted and respected, just basic respect, and treated equally. But yeah, we come across people like that sometimes who, no matter what, they may do you that way. Like like my wife is a good example. She's a clinical psychologist. She has her own private practice and whatnot. And sometimes she has interns. Um, she had this one situation where one of her interns, who's is a white young lady, was working under her and basically training. But the person that my wife was working with, as far as like the patient, would refer to my wife, by her first name, and then would refer to the intern as Doctor such and such, which was kind of an odd moment. Like, wait, I'm the doctor here, and but yeah, it's again going back to as a whole. I think we really need to do a lot of unlearning, to really break down some of those barriers. Yeah. Anyone else had any experiences?
Most recently, I went to my local grocery store in my community, which is predominantly Hispanic. And I went there early in the morning because I wanted to beat like all of the customers coming in that day because it gets pretty busy. And I don't like to use the plastic shopping bags, so I bring my own reusable ones. So I brought those in, and the officer that was security guard that was there at the door, he told me that I couldn't enter because my bag was too big,
Wow.
and that I had to go leave it in my car or I had to leave it at the front register. And I told him, I've been coming here for a really long time. I always use these bags when I come in. And he was like, well, I'm telling you now, he was like, got really loud with me. I'm telling you right now that you can't bring this bag in here. You have to leave it in your car or leave it at the front register. So I just, didn't want to have any issues. There's not even that many people in the store right now as well.
Man.
The front, but it just made me like so angry, like people have like these certain positions and whatnot, and they just, in that moment, I didn't want to like make it a bigger issue than what it was because, I don't know where he could have taken it from that point. And, I just came to just get a few groceries and go home, so I just left it at that. But there's been lots of moments where I just question, like, should I have said something there? Or like, should I have just let that go? Or this or that. So like I see myself like rethinking and going over situations in my head a lot of how things could have played out differently and things like that. But
Man.
it's definitely something that like I'm still working on, figuring out like speaking up or not, or
No, that
it's a process.
I know that feeling where it's like that the moment that occurred, it just kind of like is on replay in your mind, and you kind of like, man, I should have told, I should have told him X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, those types of moments can definitely be traumatic, you know. And anyone else want to share anything or? Okay. All right. Well, yeah, thank you all for this invitation. I really enjoyed speaking with you and also learning about your experiences. And I have hope. I have 3 kids, two little girls and one little boy. My hope is that society continues to make progress in the right direction. Just because, yeah, I definitely see a lot of the flaws. And it's not just an America thing. This is something it's worldwide. I didn't realize it until actually getting to travel. But in some places, even like for instance, you would think like in places like India, like in India, you would think like, oh, okay, you have all Indians there. How can there be any issues? But even in certain regions like that, there's people find ways to kind of dissect the basically dissect it to where, oh yeah, if you have a fair skin versus someone that has darker skin, or all these things that really is honestly is silly, but it's been so ingrained in a lot of society now to where it's almost like normalized. But my hope is that all these type of constructs and ways of believing and thinking can be broken down. Just not just for me, but for the future. And I would love to see a place where my kids can grow up, be who they want to be, and not worry about a lot of the issues that all of us probably have experienced or face. But I don't know. I think all of that type of thing again starts with each of us. We can find ways to educate others, and hopefully we get through to some. And yeah, all the change starts with us. All right, well, if you guys don't have anything else for me, thanks again, and I really appreciate you taking time to listen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hollingsworth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, well, have a good day, everyone. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.